story tonight here at 5. JCPS is moving forward with plans for a weapons detection system in middle and high schools of our public school system. But first, it wants you to know how it works. That's why the school district showcased the technology today at Butler High School. The AI system, artificial intelligence, is from Evolve Express. And from what we know, the system will be placed at each of the check-in lanes for the students who arrive. It'll be able to detect shapes in backpacks or under clothing that could indicate a weapon. School leaders say that the system is objective and it can scan about 1,800 people per hour. As part of the school system security plans, an armed officer will be present during the check-in to be able to respond to any situation. But even more crucial, there will be at least one school staff member present in each lane who knows the students. Today, we were able to do a walkthrough to see how the system works.
People can have bags in the back, they can have it on their side, they can just walk through. If the lights stay green, they go right on in. Same thing here, I walk through. Lights go red, there's an audible, my image shows up, I'm actually going to be directed to resolution. And that, again, that resolution process is defined by, by the security team at the school or the venue.
So there you have it. While this system from Evolve is what the school superintendent Marty Polio wants, the JCPS school board is looking for bids for a company to put this system into place. Once that's finalized, JCPS will hold campus walkthroughs, followed by installing the system and then training staff members on how to use the system. That will take place over the summertime. Now, here's your opportunity. We want to let you know there will be a community open house to demonstrate this technology to parents and guardians. It's next week. It's going to be next Tuesday, the 16th at Butler Traditional High School with 2 different sessions. That is Election Day. The schools will be out. One is from 11 a.m. to 1 and the other is from 4 to 6 p.m.
Right now at 5, demoralized officers, a burdened local budget, and higher crime. That's what former police leaders from other states say is coming if Louisville isn't careful in its negotiations with the Department of Justice. Isaiah Kim Martinez joins us now to explain why. Isaiah?
Well, Shay, we've talked about it for weeks, this looming federal consent decree, otherwise known as the court-monitored agreement between the DOJ and the Louisville Metro to make major reforms. Now, today, experts on this process tell me if not done right, the costs could largely outweigh the benefits. Louisville's mayor has said previously that the city will use the DOJ's findings as a framework to improve the police department. But some in the community aren't convinced it's the route to go.
The people have lost faith the LMPD and Louisville Metro government will enter these negotiations with the people in mind.
This week, a new group called the People's Consent Decree Coalition pushed back against the idea of investing more city dollars toward federally mandated police reform. But based on Metro Council's $8 to $10 million annual projection, that's exactly what Louisville is bracing itself to do.
They're expensive, they're time consuming, and as a result, the community doesn't actually see anything change for many, many years, if at all.
Jason Johnson is the former deputy commissioner of the Baltimore Police Department, helping them negotiate their consent decree years ago. After the DOJ report dropped, Johnson wrote this op-ed. He writes, based on his experience, that these agreements are often ineffective at fixing root issues long term. Instead, he says the result is losing more officers, hits to the local budget, and years under federal observation with no clear end. Johnson says cities like Baltimore have actually seen violence increase after the fact. Now he's warning Louisville leaders to be cautious on what they agree to.
Really focus on if the concern is excessive force. Really focus on that. Focus on things like training and supervision and hiring. And it's when we try to do too much at one time that you just cannot get any traction.
Meanwhile, Ernest Freestone, a former New Jersey police sergeant who now lives in Louisville, also shares concern.
They'll tell you that, it's going to be rainbows and unicorns. And for a certain point in time, it might be. But it's only one of the options that Louisville can go down.
And Johnson says police reforms are necessary, but in order to be effective, benchmarks need to be clear and achievable. For perspective, in Louisville's case, there are 36 remedial measures recommended by the DOJ. Shay.
All right, Isaiah, thank you. Jefferson County Attorney Mike O'Connell has told us that consent decree negotiations could take a year to a year and a half to complete.
A former Metro police officer has pleaded guilty to using excessive force during the 2020 protests in Louisville. Yesterday, Richard Weedo admitted to deploying a foam round into a crowd of protesters after a bottle was thrown from the back of the crowd. The round struck an individual in the front of the crowd in the face. Weedo admitted to had not identified who had thrown the bottle and was not aiming at anybody who was being actively aggressive. Weedo's guilty plea carries a maximum fine of $100,000. As part of the plea agreement, if it is accepted by the court, Weedo will forfeit his Kentucky law enforcement certification and agree not to seek any future law enforcement employment.
The COVID-era border policy, Title 42, is set to expire tonight at 11:59 p.m.
And as it comes to an end, migrants arriving at the southern U.S. border will find new rules, making it more difficult to apply for asylum.
ABC's Morgan Norwood is at the U.S. southern border near El Paso, Texas, with what comes next.
Title 42, the COVID-era health policy that allowed U.S. officials to quickly expel most migrants at the border without allowing asylum claims, will end just before midnight tonight. President Biden says it's going to be chaotic at the border for a while.
The purpose of what we're doing now is making legal immigration more streamlined and moving in the direction that people know that there's a legal way to get here and not a legal way.
For months, officials were worried there would be a spike in migrants at the border as Title 42 expired, but now they say that surge is already here. Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz saying the increase that we have seen in the last 5 to 7 days was really the surge after May 11th. I don't expect us to have the 17 to 18,000 crossings per day some people predicted. As that controversial border policy ends, new rules for asylum seekers. Some migrants will be required to have applied for and been denied asylum in another country before being allowed to apply here in the U.S. Anyone removed can face at least a 5-year ban from the country. DHS says 1.4 million people have already been sent back in the past year.
I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open. People who cross our border unlawfully and without a legal basis to remain will be promptly processed and removed.
Aid workers say while some migrants are aware of the changing policies, many are not.
They're risking everything to come to the United States because they cannot be in their home country.
And U.S. Border Patrol says they have close to 27,000 people in custody as of Wednesday, with more than half of their 9 facilities along the southwest border over capacity, which is why they are focusing in on transportation, taking migrants to less strained sectors and facilities. I'm Morgan Norwood, ABC News, El Paso, Texas.
And we have a major development in the unsolved disappearance of Natalie Holloway. She went missing in Aruba nearly 20 years ago. She was later declared dead, but her body was never found. The prime suspect in her disappearance is now being extradited to the United States from Peru. Once on American soil, authorities say he'll face charges of fraud and extortion for allegedly demanding $250,000 from Holloway's mother in exchange for information on where the teen was buried. The Dutch national has been serving a 28-year sentence in Peruvian prison for the 2010 murder of another young woman.
It is a huge deal to get Joran Vandersloot from Peru temporarily back to the United States. It's not the murder charge, but it's really important to get him back here and see if we can further advance what really happened to Natalie Holloway.
Holloway's mother released a statement saying she would be 36 years old now. It has been a very long and painful journey, but the persistence of many is going to pay off. Together, we are finally getting justice for Natalie.